on the Dave Koz Radio Show. I'm Dave, and joining me now is a first-timer to this show. She's been making music for more than 30 years and has racked up quite a few hits along the way. We're very happy to have her here. A big welcome to pianist Carol Albert. Great to finally meet you, Carol.
How are you doing, Dave? It's so good to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm doing great and so happy to finally have you on the show. Welcome on in. So let's start by having you tell us a little bit about your early years. I understand your upbringing is in classical music, right?
Yeah, I went to Georgia State University, studied classical music in college, and then when I graduated, I decided to go into pop music and sort of began a little pop music stint with bands and bars and all of that good stuff, and just kind of evolved as the years went by.
So how did you get from the pop world to the contemporary jazz world?
Well, when I was doing, I did a lot of cruise ships and a lot of different, I traveled with my music, and as a cover, I just did a lot of what was considered contemporary jazz. And everyone says, well, why did you write that? Well, that's what I like. That's the style that I would emulate. That's the style that I would play as covers and just progress that way.
Carol Albert is our special guest this weekend. And Carol, was there a moment along the way that you would consider to be your quote-unquote big break?
I think the biggest thing is when I recorded Mascanata. Mm-hmm. It was a tune that I had played a lot in Europe, and I had played for many, many years as a cover when I was playing in different venues, and I decided to record it, and I sent it to Gorov Music, and they sent it out, and Sirius XM picked it up right away, and they still play it. A lot of people heard that tune and really loved my version of it, and I think if you had to think of a break, that would probably be it.
Well, let's jump right into it, shall we? From our special in-studio guest this weekend, pianist-composer Carol Albert. Here's her version of the Sergio Mendes classic, Mascanata, on the Dave Koz Radio Show. Well, hey again, I'm Dave Koz, joined again by pianist-composer Carol Albert, and I'm sure that you would agree, nobody like Joe Sample, but your touch on the piano is unique indeed. I know you write a lot of your own music, Carol. When did you actually start putting pen to paper?
Oh, I started writing music when I was about the 8th grade. Wow. I mean, I always did music. I learned to play with my grandmother, who played by ear, and she actually taught me by ear, and then I started taking lessons a few years later, reading music. But I've always written music. I would go in and out of periods that I wouldn't write, but I've always heard music in my head, just something I've always done.
Well, one of our favorites around here, Carol, is a song you wrote called Femme Flight. What can you tell us about that song?
Well, I don't know. I heard this tune in my head, and then I heard this, the vision of the way I wanted it to be, and I've always loved flute, and, Reagan Whiteside is a good friend of mine, and so I said, well, wouldn't it be great if I just do this tune, and I'll have an all-female band and have you and a saxophonist, but the other parts of the band never really worked out. But I called it Femme Flight because the flute just reminded me of flying and being free, so it's just the way the tune came together. It all fell in place.
Well, let's take a listen to it right now from our special in-studio guest, pianist Carol Albert, featuring Reagan Whiteside on flute and Magdalena Chovenkova on saxophone. Here is Femme Flight on the Dave Koz Radio Show. Hey again, I'm Dave Koz. Thank you so much for joining us this weekend, and we are back with our special in-studio guest, pianist Carol Albert. Carol, on your latest album, Magic Mirror, you hit #1 toward the end of the year with your song Paradigm Shift that featured Paul Brown on guitar. Now, I know you worked with Paul before, but the recording was mostly done in Atlanta, I think. This time you came out to California to record with Paul in his studio. Tell us about that experience, because he's just a master, isn't he?
The day we recorded that was really a nice day. Of course, you have a lot of those great days out in the West Coast. Living in Georgia, we get a lot of rain, but this was a particularly nice sunny day. And after we recorded that, I just felt really great. And it was something different for me because Paul and I recorded together live where I had not done that before. It'd always been, private sessions, or I'd record a part, I would send it away, but we recorded in the same room, and that was a different thing. And then I went out afterwards with a friend and went to watch the surfers, and I don't know, I just felt like I was in such a different, kind of just some real shifting in my consciousness and coming out of the pandemic. It just felt like a really nice forward movement and just a real shift. And so I kind of titled it Paradigm Shift.
Well, it's a beautiful song. I want to play it right now from our in-studio guest, pianist-composer Carol Albert, together with Paul Brown on guitar. This is the song Paradigm Shift on the Dave Koz Radio Show.